Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 13, Episode 156. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Monday, Steelers Nation. And I am back after my week staycation. I want to thank Josh Carney and Jonathan Heitrader for sitting in for me on the last couple of episodes. But Dave, it is officially camp week. We are back. The Steelers are back. I can't wait.
We're back, baby. Fun. Definitely a fun week. Found myself getting real excited last night. And, because, just a lot of things that we're going to learn here, I think, or hopefully learn during the, throughout training camp and obviously all the newsy kind of stuff that comes right at the front. And, I think we got a Alex Highsmith press conference going to happen today. That'll keep us busy. And, just all the things that go along with the start of training camp with Tomlin speaking and us finding out who's going to go on, if any, go on the PUP and the NFI or any of those lists, and those initial reporting day media scrums and just all the typical stuff. And then obviously following it up later on this week when you get out to Latrobe for the first of several practices, and looking forward to those reports. So yeah, it's about that time again. And thank you everybody who is stuck with us throughout the off season and reading the site and listening to the shows and all like that. So it should be an exciting next month coming up, obviously edging towards the start of the 2023 regular season.
Yeah, we are back at it. So plenty to talk about today, probably recapping some of the things that you discussed last week, but to get my thoughts on Alex Highsmith, potentially the running back market situation. Before we do that, though, Dave, if you guys could just indulge me for just 1 second, I wanted to say something here on the podcast. Got a message from one of our loyal, longtime listeners and readers of the site, Dave, and he sent me this message that very sadly, his younger brother, Jason, had passed away this weekend after a battle with cancer. So he just wanted to ask if we could give a shout out to him, and our thoughts are certainly with Dave and his family. Jason, big time Steelers fan, attending a couple Steelers games together, including the famous Deshae Townsend interception of Tony Romo, and that, I think, big comeback victory about a decade plus ago. So just wanted to shout that out and let Dave know that we're thinking about him and his family. So appreciate you letting me give that shout out, but we can move on here now. And I know that you guys talked about Alex Highsmith quite a bit, and as you just alluded to, press conference today to celebrate that 4-year extension. I won't talk too much about it because much has already been said, and I've written about it some as well. But I just think it's a great story for a guy to be a 0-star recruit out of high school, walk on to Charlotte, and to go from there to where he's at today, changing his family tree, securing this mega payday. And so it's well-deserved. He's a really good player coming off a breakout season, but I love this story behind it for the man, not just the player.
Absolutely. And it's, obviously we've talked about him most of the offseason and how we expected this to happen. And it wasn't really so much if it would happen, it was when and what it would look like from a new money standpoint and all like that. And obviously we got all those answers this past week here. And here's something else. We see. We wondered if they would get this done before camp or after the start of camp, and just another sign that Omar Khan. It looks like we talk about things that are maybe a little bit different here moving forward with the way Omar Khan likes to run things here. It feels like if he has his druthers that he would like to get these off-season extensions done prior to the start of training camp, as opposed to them trickling over into it.
Yeah, I had written about that. And first of all, kudos to you, because I think you nailed this one to a T. I guessed it would happen shortly after camp opened up. You would guess before camp. And I think from the money standpoint, you were right on the money. And so you are the Oracle of Vegas. You got the Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett, and you're the Oracle of Las Vegas when it comes to all things cap and Steelers related. So I think you nailed this one basically to a T. But you're right. I think we've certainly seen that urgency from Omar Khan, whether it was Minka last June, Highsmith before camp, even Deontay Johnson and Chris Boswell getting done before camp ended, about halfway through camp. And I think maybe the philosophy is a bit different with Khan than Colbert. I do think the fact that hold-ins have become a lot more popular have given some players a bit of leverage in that respect, especially in Pittsburgh, where holdouts were never a thing. The team does not talk to anybody who would threaten a holdout or hold out back when that was in vogue. And so I think that's maybe created a bit more urgency in Pittsburgh to get these guys done ahead of camp. So there is no hold in, and these guys aren't losing reps during the summer that may have some sort of effect as you get into the season.
Yeah, and we'll see. I guess, kind of, if you want to kind of take a peek ahead to, maybe somebody we'll be talking about next year. It could be Pat Freiermuth. I think there's a good chance that, that ends up being a huge topic of conversation, next off season, and hopefully maybe, he'll have a good 2023 season, and this will be another kind of easy one to kind of predict and follow the process on. And, a year from now, when they report for training camp, probably getting him done as well too. We've talked quite a bit, obviously, I have with Josh and Jonathan, and I don't want to go too deep into the Alex Highsmith thing here, but one thing that we did not have up until heading into the weekend was the actual breakdown of the contract. We obviously had some loose numbers, knew what the overall value is going to be, and some of the kind of the yearly cash flow type things, but we didn't have the actual signing bonus and structure of this thing, and we do have it now. He received, and here's the thing, he's upwards up, as far as my prediction went, I viewed it anywhere from 15 and a half to 17 and a quarter new money average. He obviously came in on the higher end of that scale at 17 million there. But when you look at this, and I've seen people get kind of upset about that, but when you look at the breakdown of this deal, to be quite honest with you, $16 million signing bonus for him. They lowered his base salary down to the minimum for his accrued seasons there. That brings his cash flow in year one to just a tick over 17 million in total. And while this thing cash flow wise ends up being what it should be, or what the numbers say, obviously closer to 71 million. When you look at it in the early years of the cash flow situation there, it's actually, to me, from what my predictions were and what I thought this contract would look like, even after the initial numbers were reported, it's a little light in the cash flow early on, and then obviously made up in the later of the years of the deal. Specifically, it catches up to where the cash flow, the expected cash flow would be through 2025. But in these first 2 years, and specifically even this first year, I thought the cash flow would come in a little bit higher, and meaning that the signing bonus would be a little bit higher than it was, and then the first year base salary being a little bit higher overall. It feels like through the first 2 years of this deal, 2023, 2024, and specifically through the first new year of the deal, which would be 2024, it feels like it's like $3 million light in cash flow. Now, is that huge in the grand scheme of things? No, but I think overall, if you look at the fact that he got $17 million new money average, and then this thing ended up being a 4-year extension versus maybe a 2-year extension, it feels like they kind of some concessions were made on each side here to get to that point. But on top of it, it feels like this contract favors the Steelers through the first 2 years of the deal, being 2023 and 2024. Now, there was the report right out of the chute that a little more than 27.7 million of this deal was guaranteed. And as I cautioned when I ran through the contract on that solo podcast, there is, let's see what's really guaranteed as far as fully guaranteed and injury guaranteed. I had a feeling that there were not going to be full guarantees past the first year of this deal, and that ended up being the case. Obviously, the base salary in 2023 of a little over $1 million is fully guaranteed. Obviously, the signing bonus of $16 million is fully guaranteed, but past that, and specifically when you get into the second year money of 2024, you have a base salary a little more than $10.7 million. And that's guaranteed for injury only. It's not fully guaranteed there. So Omar was able to stick, and we talked about this through the process, right? For these non kind of market resetting deals, this team's probably going to want to try to stay away from fully guaranteed money past the first year. And that ended up being a concession that, Alex Highsmith had to make on his end here overall. So, people will look at this thing and say, that's $17 million new money average. That seems high. But I think when you look at the first 2 years of this contract, the trade-off to getting there, the cash flow is a little light by $3 million. Obviously, only 2023 is fully guaranteed money. Overall, top to bottom, this is a good deal for both sides, but it leans more in the first 2 years of this deal of being advantage Steelers overall. Now, the hope is obviously he goes out and plays all five years of this deal, and it just doesn't matter, But and more specifically, you'd like him to get through the first 3 years of this deal just fine, without anything happening there. But I like the chances of him playing out this full deal. And once again, top to bottom, when you break these things down from a cash flow and a new money and guarantees and all like that, this deal really top to bottom advantage Steelers.
Yeah, that's well said and summarized by you. If I could get my memory refreshed on two things. TJ Watt, he got the first 2 years or 3 years fully guaranteed of his deal? Was it 2 or 3?
I know it was the first 2 for sure.
Yeah, obviously, because that was the one that broke precedent beyond the first year. I forget if it was 3 years or 2 years fully guaranteed. And do you know if Minka, he was just the first 2, I'm pretty sure?
Let's see. The Watt deal had the first 3 years of it fully guaranteed, and because all
Minka was.
Let's see. The Minka deal
2?
was through this year. So first 2 years of the Minka deal was fully guaranteed. Now, obviously beyond that, there's a whole injury guarantees and all like that.
Sure.
But if we're talking fully guaranteed, Minka was the first 2 years and Watt was the first 3 years.
All right. So we're kind of seeing a bit of a hierarchy there. Watt gets 3, Minka gets 2, Highsmith stays at the standard 1. From a signing bonus standpoint, what did Watt and Minka get? Was there any difference? Did Highsmith kind of get a bigger relative signing bonus to kind of exchange for the only first year fully guaranteed money?
No, not really, because of the fact that, once again, I thought the cash flow would be a little bit stronger overall from a percent. Here's what came into play, and we talked about this as well too. The threat of the franchise tag. That was really wielded in this situation here, because quite honestly, I thought he was going to get more like closer to 20 million in that first year, being this year 2023, and he only got a tick over 17 million. So the fact that they were able to keep the signing bonus down overall. And when you remember back that he was originally scheduled to earn little over 2.7, almost 2.75 million because of the proven performance escalator that he had qualified for this year, and the fact that he got 17.1 million total. I don't want to say only an increase of a little more than $14 million in the first year, but to get the deal done, because normally you need to give some incentive to sign the deal. But once again, you had the threat of back-to-back franchise tags that kind of capped off specifically this year and next year with a tag that, hey, if you don't take this deal, this is the most that you're going to have the opportunity to earn anyway. They were really able to use that. The Steelers used that as leverage on their side to keep the cash flow down in the first 2 years of the deal.
Right. That's always the trump card to use from the team side, is always that threat of that franchise tag. So.
And I think Pat Fryermuth's going to, they might let him in the office to look at the franchise tag sword this offseason.
Just show that holster a little bit like the old Wild West movies. Yeah.
Yeah. You want to come see it, see what it looks like. Obviously there's all this talk about the running backs and the money and all like that, but until the next CBA discussions come along, players as a whole hate the franchise tag,
and the teams and owners love it. And good luck getting them to give it up.
They do. So I think I will learn from this situation, from trying to extrapolate, project these contracts, from the fact that. I really believe that Omar likes to use that thing, as a threat there. And barring Pat Fryer, even if Pat Fryermuth comes out and has obviously a career year, it doesn't change the process overall here. So they basically look at what they can potentially cap these guys out at with the franchise tag. Going into the final year of their rookie contracts, and then kind of work backwards from there and say, how much of this cash do you want now? Do you really want to risk playing for, in Alex Highsmith's case, 2.743 million with hopes of getting the franchise tag and then negotiating off that? Or do you want to get the guaranteed money right now?
Right. The risk of getting hurt, the risk of regression, the risk of whatever happens to reduce those chances of getting that long-term deal later if you wait or if you play extreme hardball. So happy that it's done. Happy that it's done before camp. It's a good deal for all sides and just goes back to the Steelers' business model of draft, develop, retain. That's what happened with Alex Highsmith.
You're right. Exactly.
All right, running back market. Again, I think you guys talked about it a fair bit last week, so I won't, drag the conversation on too much longer. There is an update, though, off of that, apparently on Saturday night, first reported by PFT's Mike Florio, that Chargers running back Austin Eckler put together a Zoom meeting for all the top running backs in football. Najee Harris reportedly did attend it to talk about basically, I guess it was the old Seinfeld airing of the grievances, I guess, because I don't know what else to really was to be accomplished there, and I don't really know what came out of that meeting other than a report from PFT talking about that running backs want to get with agents to I guess set out better expectations and see what agents can try to do. I really don't see any solutions here for the running back position under the current set of circumstances, but it is important to know, especially knowing that sooner or later, Najee Harris will be looking for that second contract.
Yeah, and Nick Chubb and obviously the Browns have already reported, and Nick Chubb spoke about this, I think, yesterday. I thought Nick Chubb did a good job addressing the correct questions related, to the Zoom meeting and the running back situation and all like that. I don't know if, obviously being a Steelers, themed site and podcast and all like that, not a lot of people are going to run over and try to track down what all he said, but I think it's worth listening to overall. And in so many words, he said there's not much that we can do, and that's the basis of all this. And I know there's all this talk about running backs forming their own union and all like that. Good luck with that. And good luck. I think Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk said, look, they need to get all these guys together, these running backs together, and then next year say we're not reporting to OTAs and all like that. Well, good luck getting those rookie undrafted free agents to show up and do that. And look, you obviously have these top of the market guys, and these guys are impacted there, but what beyond that, these guys are just looking to get rosters. A lot of these, 75% of the running backs on rosters would love to get in the situation that the Nick Chubbs and the Najee Harris and Ecklers and all these guys would like to be, right? So are you going to really get all these guys, all the running backs in a running back union to stand up and take a hard stance on this and not show up? Somebody's going to break ranks there because they got to eat.
Right.
That kind of thing there. And they're, I hate it for them, but they're in a rock and a hard place right now. And to get, the NFLPA to do anything and try to get concessions made. Well, what about the other position groups? What about the centers and the guards and the off the ball linebackers and the safeties that think they're underpaid? When are you going to fight for us? What are we going to have to give up as a group of players so that running backs can get paid more? It's just it sounds good in theory, and I mean they have they kept up with the inflation and the rise of the cap and all like that as far as what they're getting paid? No. The best way to defeat this situation for them is for a couple of them to get paid,
Right. That's what I was saying. A generational player comes and he resets the market, and the rising tide lifts all boats.
Right. So, and until some of these top guys hold out and force, or at least get themselves in a situation where teams have to pay them, well, it's not going to help out the group overall. And look, Najee's it's going to be very interesting. And, I fully expect when Najee reports, in the middle of this week here, a lot of the conversation in the media scrum that he has is going to be related to what you guys talk about in this Zoom call, and what do you guys think you can do? And it's going to be, it will be interesting to see his responses and see how those kind of align with a guy like Nick Chubb. But quite honestly, they're just SOL for lack of a better word there. And a guy like Najee specifically, he's got to have a good season in 2023 just to make sure he gets himself in a situation where he gets his fifth-year option picked up. If anything, it's kind of a deterrent. I don't want to say, tank the season or anything.
So the option doesn't get picked up and he can hit free agency potentially.
Right.
I see.
You see where I'm going there? Because let's say he has a great season and his fifth-year option gets picked up. Well, what's that number going to be? I don't know, 10, 11 million, something like that. It's a little bit early out on that. But, at least he hits that end of it, but he stays underneath control of the Steelers another year longer. And then obviously you get into the years past his fifth year, unless they come to the negotiation table next offseason, which would be very uncharacteristic for the Steelers, as we talked about, for a player 2 years out, to sign him to a long. In other words, he would have to be hoping for a Christian McCaffrey type situation. Whereas, he signed the deal that he's on ahead of his fifth-year option going into effect. In fact, I don't even think they got to the fifth-year option on him, the decision on him. They signed him to that long-term deal before even having to decide to pick up the fifth-year option. So unless the Steelers do something like that with Najee, which it would be very, very uncharacteristic from the Steelers organization, then Najee's still potentially looking at the fifth-year option, a tag year after that, and then possibly a back-to-back tag year under that. And, that you want to talk about really capping his earnings, and especially if some of these guys on the top end of the market, like Christian McCaffrey and Chubb and Kamara, all those deal and Henry and those things start coming off the board, what's the cap number going to do? So it's not a great outlook from where Najee sits right now. And it'll be interesting to hear him talk on that later this week when he reports to training camp.
And he's spoken about it some already during the spring. And then that tweet, whenever the running backs became very vocal initially a week or two ago. And so I think we kind of a general feel for his thoughts. Yeah, you're right. It is funny. It's almost like the best plan for a running back is to be, bad this year, get the option declined, and then have that great fourth year. And so that kind of just maybe, has boost your market value back. But as the bottom line is, as long as the franchise tag exists, the players really don't have a lot of options. And that's what Tony Pollard and Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs and years ago Le'Veon Bell all ran up against. And so what the running backs need to try to do is to push for the franchise tag to get eliminated in the future CBA. But A, that's in 2030. All these guys will be done playing by then or almost done playing by then. And B, good luck getting the owners to agree. The concession needed to give up the tag would be monumental. I don't even know what it would take for the owners to eliminate the franchise tag. So I had written yesterday, the best thing running back should do, the thing running back should do is to try to build a time machine and go back to 2020 and rework the CBA, because barring that, I don't know what else they can do.
Yeah, but it would have to be all players, right? Not just running backs, because you got to have the full support of the league. And is the league are you going to get the collective of the players in the NFLPA to make concessions on their side for one position group of players?
Sure. Well, I mean, obviously no player likes the franchise tag.
Right.
So there's probably an appetite position wide to do that, but what it would take to actually get the NFL to give that up, I mean, I'm sure players in the NFLPA would not love whatever that thing would be.
Right. They're going to want another game out of them. They're going to, they're going to have to make some concessions to get that stuff out of there and get players to free agency quicker and all like that. So, good luck. And once again, when Najee's situation, what do? You want to do just well enough this year that they don't pick up your fifth year option. And remember that the fifth year option for Najee Harris is for the 2025 season.
Right.
So he to earn that money is still way out there overall for him. And, I don't know what's the mindset to make sure that you don't get 400 touches in a season, tap yourself out of a couple of games, Give Jalen some work here. I think this is a purple, tap out. I'm a little tired here, but you still, once again, you don't want to do bad enough where they really start questioning, where around the league you're questioned.
Right.
But then again, you kind of wonder, is the fifth year option worth it?
Right. There's such an incredible line to walk. And of course, if you hypothetically tapped out and Jaylen Warren runs well, then it's like, okay, we're not going to pay you, Najee, because Jaylen Warren's running well. And so we'll just go to him because he's cheaper. So that's the whole issue. There is, again, obviously no clear solution, to handle this. So all Najee Harris can do is just go in, have the best season that he can, get the fifth year option picked up, I guess, let the chips where they lie. It's all he can do is just focus on himself. I mean, He alone cannot solve the running back market crisis. None of these guys can do that. Even collectively together, they can try to do some things, but their options are extremely limited. So all they can do is just be the best players they can be. And like I said before, I've said this for a while, let's assume that it's Bijan Robinson, the rookie that just becomes the next generational AP type player and has enough leverage that he gets paid a record-setting deal and resets the market, and then players behind him follow suit. And they won't jump Robinson potentially, but they could come in right behind him. So that to me is truly the way the running back market increases. It will always lag behind other positions, but hopefully the salaries can go up over time.
If you're a young running back too in this next year's class and you're deemed one of the top. Do you purposely tank your pre-draft process so you don't get drafted in the first round, so you're not so you don't have to worry about that fifth-year option? It's something to think about. And I tell you, I think you're seeing a situation when you don't think these young players don't think about. They just want to get to the NFL, right?
Yeah, and we're not really seriously suggesting anyone to really tank or do anything like that. I don't think.
No, but
maybe you are. I don't know. Maybe you are.
I don't know. I mean, what's the word going to start trickling down? Not that it hasn't already, but this is going to start filtering down into the lower levels at some point. And I tell you, if I'm a high school running back right now, if I've got a savvy, people around me that think I can do something, are you thinking, man, you're the best athlete on this team? I'd seriously consider moving to wide receiver or moving to another position, because you're not, at least until 2030, you're not going to get paid as a running back in the NFL. There is going to be some sort of fallout from this, I think, positionally, but I don't know exactly what that looks like.
Probably. Although I would just say this is not a new conversation. The running backs have been up against it for several seasons. I think it's just become more to the forefront this year because A, it's the offseason, and B, the players themselves have been more vocal. But this is not a brand new problem. It's something that they've been dealing with for going on probably about 10 years now.
Right. And once again, I think it's going to be very interesting to hear what Najee has to say about all this when he reports later this week.
He generally has kind of a no filter kind of vibe, so he'll probably give you his honest thoughts. But that's probably enough talk on the running back market. We'll go now to my roster predictions. It feels like training camp because I'm issuing my pre-training camp Pittsburgh Steelers roster predictions, knowing that this will change and I'll have different additions following each post or a preseason game. So I'll kind of run through the names here and you kind of give me your input and what you agree and what you disagree with, Dave. Starting with quarterback, keeping 3. The obvious names: Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, and Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's hard to go against those right now, and especially with the how little money Mason Rudolph's making. It's a minimum deal right there. I guess the biggest question, I wrote this up in my 90 and 30, is they already know a lot about Mason Rudolph. Obviously, at this point, you still got to get him some work throughout the summer and all like that, but. Just how Chris Oladokin does Tanner Morgan get this year during camp and the preseason? It's hard enough anyway to get even a third string quarterback some snaps, and obviously with Kenny Pickett, first full year entering camp as a starter, you want to get him plenty of work throughout this process here. The biggest question, once again, I think the biggest question is how much work can Tanner Morgan get throughout this process, and will it even matter? Because it's hard to go against Pickett, Trubisky, and Mason Rudolph, especially with Rudolph earning the minimal here, to see Rudolph getting the axe after the dust clears.
At running back, I have 3, Najee Harris, Jalen Warren. Those are 2 locks. The third spot wide open. I'm going Alfonso Graham, the rookie tryout player who caught a contract post-rookie minicamp from Morgan State. So it's really a question about that third running back spot, Dave.
It really is, and it's been that for a little while. It'll be interesting to see if anybody's brought in. Look, we have seen, we've had discussions in the past. This guy looks good at the start of camp. Looks like he can play some special teams. One ankle injury later, or one, two missed practices or whatever, and then they're gone. So or will this team look to bring in a more experienced guy later on in the process? We'll see. But I think if there's going to be one young running back that's on the roster right now that has a chance of being that number 3, and I'll even include Anthony McFarland as a young running back in that group, I think it would lean towards more Alfonso Graham or Darius Hagans there. So it's it's a significant group to kind of look at. When it comes to bottom of the roster guys, can Hagans or Graham show anything on offense, and more specifically, can they make contributions of like on 2 special teams or not, and maybe even 4?
And both have special teams background in college. And while number 3 running back is not the most exciting or consequential spot, if Harris or Warren goes down, your number 3 is your number 2, and it becomes pretty notable. We're going to talk about that number 3 pretty quickly if he bumps up a spot on the depth chart. So it is a battle to, I think, closely watch.
Right.
All right, at fullback, I listed Connor Hayward. I think he's still, working with the tight ends in terms of being in that room, but I'll call him a fullback just to make things look nice and pretty on the roster side of things. But he's going to be versatile. He's going to move around, but essentially pick up some of the snaps left by the departed Derek Watt.
And then when you move forward into the kind of the adjoining room there of the tight ends, you have, of course, Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, Zach Gentry. I guess looking at those two position groups as a whole, Zach Gentry would be the one that you probably wouldn't bet the entire house on, only most of the house on making it. It's look. I am really excited to see what Monty Pottebaum can do.
You love the mullets. You're all in on the mullet.
I do, but even his best, will it be enough? Kind of situation. He could have the most fantastic camp and preseason there is, and you still have to wonder, is it enough? But if it is enough, where do you find the extra roster spot at for him? I think I could see us, because look, Zach Gentry is no special teams demon. And there have been questions about Zach Gentry's blocking. I think if this was to go, these combined 4 spots, if you will, if they were to go sideways, not because of injury, it would be because, all right, look, Zach Gentry, Darnell Washington's had a fantastic camp. He can give us everything we want and more as a second tight end on the field in 12 personnel type grouping. And then on top of that, boy, how we can't cut Monty Pottebaum. He's too good of a damn special teams player, and he's a true fullback at that. A truer fullback than Connor Hayward is. So if this combined position group was to go sideways in any way, shape, or form, not injury related, then I could see maybe Pottebaum sneaking in instead of Gentry.
The thing that Pottebaum has going for him, and given the tight spot that he's in, he doesn't have a lot going for him, but he's in the perfect offense because Pittsburgh wants to be old school. They want to be big personnel. They want to be I form and run the ball and get downhill and be physical. And those all fit in the Pottebaum's wheelhouse. With Gentry, you're right. I would not bet the whole house or even half the house. I'd bet a whole closet on Zach Gentry, I guess, to make it. What he has going for him is that Washington is a rookie. There could be some rookie struggles, even though he's a bit more refined and NFL ready than a lot of rookie tight ends, and he's got the size profile this team likes. And so I still think he makes it, but there is no, guarantee there. If Connor Hayward was a bigger player, then Gentry may be pushed out. But given the fact that, Connor Hayward can never replace what Darnell Washington could do, Gentry's odds are going to make it. Now, will he be active on game day, Gentry? That's a different question. But I think for now, he's still inside that bubble.
Right. It's hard to bet against the 4 that you have here, and it's the obvious direction to go. But once again, if there was somebody that's going to upset the apple cart here, it would really be 2 people, because Darnell Washington, you'd have to have a lot of confidence in him being your number 2 coming out of camp. And then on top of it, Pottebaum would have to be dead solid perfect in all areas.
I just want to interrupt our roster prediction here. Training camp is back for most teams. Pittsburgh, I think Pittsburgh, you said Pittsburgh's the last team to report to training camp this year. Is that correct? Yeah. So kind of crazy there. Yeah. And so a couple injuries around the league. And it is a reminder, training camp injuries can shake up roster predictions and roster spots and complexions of teams pretty quickly. It looks like Nyheim Hines reportedly, he was on a jet ski stationary, got hit by another jet ski, he's got a season-ending knee injury. And the Lions, they're a big prize there. CJ Gardner-Johnson has a non-contact leg injury. He's carted off the field. And so that could be season-ending for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. So just a reminder that training camp, we've seen those in Pittsburgh, unfortunately. There's been some moments where it looked worse than it was. Remember, Robert Golden went down. I thought he was done for the year. Ramon Foster had one scary injury one year. Chase Claypool got hurt, I think, a season or 2 ago in camp. And things better than what they've seen, but some discouraging news there already for training camps around the league. But anyway, back to the Pittsburgh Steelers with wide receivers. I had 6 on my previous edition, now just 5, and the 5 are pretty predictable in Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Allen Robinson, Calvin Austin, and Miles Boykin. So I think you would probably agree that those 5 are going to make it. The question is, will there be a 6th guy that makes it?
Yeah, and where did this what position group ate up the other spot? Was that offensive line with you? Didn't you go 8 the last time? Okay.
Now I'm 9. Yep. Now I'm going, because I think for Pittsburgh, A, there's got to be a 6th receiver that earns that spot, and there's nobody that clearly deserves it entering camp. And B, again, for Pittsburgh, wanting to be big, physical, they may be more willing to go, which is 5 receivers, because they're not counting on having this prolific passing game.
And the thing about Miles Boykin that has him tied to this, that's hard to go against, is that special teams ability.
Yep, great gunner.
And plus, been in the system now, kind of understand, can offer you some versatility within that. So yeah, I definitely understand why you went the way that you did there. It will either be 5 or 6 at that position group, and it might come down to the offensive line total.
Yeah, and I think for the receivers, can Calvin Austin be the kick and punt returner? If he can, great. If he can't, then does Gunnar Olszewski find a way to stick around on the roster? I think we're kind of counting him out, but I don't want to forget him, because the return situation, although it may be devalued, still needs some guys back there, and that is an uncertain position right now for the Steelers. All right, offensive line here and offensive tackles, keeping 3 in Broderick Jones, Dan Moore Jr., and Chuck Wilmore-Okorafor. No LaRaven Clark. I have him off the list here. He could make it, but I just think he's going to have a pretty poor camp. And of course, they drafted Jones after signing LaRaven Clark. So really, it's the question of who starts more so than who gets kept. But those are the 3 guys.
Okay, no argument here. And I think you kind of, when looking at perspective, you have Spencer Anderson listed as a center there, but he's obviously a versatile guy that going to be interesting to see during camp how much they look at that, and preseason too, how much they look at the versatility of Spencer Anderson, right? Are we going to see him at right tackle, right guard, and center, throughout this thing? If Spencer Anderson gets to show that, and we'll go ahead and read off the rest of these offensive guards. You have Sayamalu, James Daniels, and Nate Herbig. For the centers, you obviously have Mason Cole. You have Ryan McCollum in there, and then you added Spencer Anderson at the end of that list there as well too. You could throw probably Anderson in any one of these positional groups overall. Here, when I list mine, I'm probably just going to list offensive linemen total and not break them down by position there. But I think Spencer Anderson is the real. I think there's 2 wild cards within this. A, can Ryan McCollum win the backup center spot? And obviously that's the way you have this thing working out. I think you've been leaning towards McCollum most of the offseason here. So I think he is a bit of the wild card within this. Will they go out and find a more veteran center closer to the start of the season? That's a question we've asked quite a bit. And then the other wild card in this is Spencer Anderson and that versatility. If you can get some comfort whatsoever that this guy in break glass in case of emergency can play right tackle, right guard, and even some center, I mean, that's a best case scenario there because of that versatility there. So 2 wild cards within this, McCollum and Spencer Anderson. I see where your head's at, and it's hard to go against it overall. You obviously have Kendrick Green on the outside here.
Right. And Green should open camp on day 1 as that second team backup center, but where it goes from there, we'll have to see. Yeah, somebody in the comments said they're not going to carry 3 centers. Why? You're not going to carry Anderson too. Well, Anderson, you can put him, as you said, a guard, tackle. He may get more work at those other spots. I'm not quite sure how they're going to use him. So don't get too caught up in the 3 centers. McCollum can play guard. He will be, in my scenario, the true backup center. Anderson would be that versatile guy. Kind of reminds me of Chris Hubbard, bit undersized, decent athlete overall, versatile. That's going to be his calling card.
Yeah, if you want something to track in Alex Kozora's nightly camp reports and preseason games when it comes to our charting and all like that, instead of Where's
Waldo.
Where's Waldo? Where's Spencer Anderson?
Yeah, it's a little more warty than where's Waldo, but I'm with you on that one.
The board game probably wouldn't sell all that well.
Yeah, they're sitting on shelves. They're not too popular this summer. All right, defense here, defensive end, Cam Hayward, Larry Ogunjobi, and I'll call it to Marvin Leal, a defensive end. So those three there, and basically just I should really lump this as defensive linemen in general because there's versatility here. So with those three on top of that, Keanu Benton, Armin Watts, and Braden Fehoko. Those are my 6 defensive linemen.
Yeah, I think those would be my 6 as well right now. From where I sit here, Watts has that. I wrote him up, I think, in my latest 90 and 30 series and all like that. Just the versatility that he has up and down the line, can even play over the center if you need him to. Going to be hard. To me, he should easily beat out a guy like Isaiah Loudermilk. And the question becomes, Montravius Adams, I think we know what his ceiling is right now. I think Fehoko has a better chance of being a better over the nose type player than potentially Montravius Adams. So those would be the 6 I would go with as well right now. If there was to be a 7th in this position group, who would it be and what position group would it pull from?
Well, I think Loudermilk would, be a candidate there. I think the DN depth is still a little shaky. I still am intrigued by, I shouldn't say because I need to see him more, but James Nyamwaya, because I think he's a really athletic guy that has that prototypical size, the rookie from Merrimack. So I think, as we talked about, I think 2 weeks ago, he's more practice squad than he is probably 53, but that's a name I'll be watching pretty closely in training camp.
Okay.
And where it pulls from, I'm not even sure. Maybe outside linebacker or next spot here at the edge rusher position, because I'm a bit heavy with 5, with TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Marcus Golden, Nick Herbig, and always good to throw an undrafted pass rusher on there. They seem to always make noise in Pittsburgh. David Perales from Fresno State. I think he's a good college player. I think he had an injury in the pre-draft process that made his testing look worse than what it is. I think Perales is a name to also really watch this summer.
I definitely see where your head is at here. The pushback that I would get, and look, I enjoyed the David Perales college tape, high effort pass rusher, extremely high effort type of guy. He's got some refinement. I think he needs to do from an all-around pass rush plan and learning to play on his feet, a little bit more probably. And on top of that, I kind of wonder what he is as a special teams guy. In my opinion, if you're going to keep a 5th edge rusher here, I would prefer it to be one that I know I could dress and give me some help on special teams. I'm not convinced Perales could be that guy. I have in my head Perales being a practice squad guy, and thus I would have this team keeping 4 edge rushers, knowing that my 5th inside linebacker, because I'd keep 5, would definitely be a guy that I dress on play and play on special teams. So I would push back on, not that he can't make it. I could definitely see some scenarios where they did keep 5 edge rushers and 5 inside linebackers, but I would push back on the fact that Perales, I'm not sure he could get a helmet as a special teams guy as being a main reason of why I would not keep 5 at that position.
That's fair. I don't know much about his special teams background in college, and you probably find that out this summer. So it's certainly going to be one of those top things to watch if he's going to truly make a run at a roster spot. At inside linebacker, keeping 5 as well in Cole Holcomb, Mark Robinson, Landon Roberts, Tanner Muse, and Nick Kwiatkowski. I think 5 feels a bit heavy here, Dave, but I didn't know who to take off because they're signing all these guys and they revamped the entire room, and I just assume they're going to basically keep all these guys and see what sticks.
You didn't jump through the podcast machine the other day on your staycation when we had the conversation about Mark Robinson, did you?
I didn't hear that. I should have gone back and listened. No.
I just threw out the hypothetical. Just look, I am high. I'm coming out of last year's preseason. Obviously, Liked a lot of what I saw about Mark Robinson there. Fast forward into last season, he only played 40-something snaps and in 4 different games, and 2 of those games were late in the season there. Just didn't get a lot of burn. And as I told Josh and Jonathan, I need to see more of this tape. And obviously I hope that, I don't think what we heard out of Terrell Austin were the kind of things that we kind of thought that we'd hear out of Terrell Austin earlier this summer. Now, was that a way to motivate Mark Robinson and all like that? But let's remember, this is a guy that only played 1 year of off-the-ball linebacker in college, obviously didn't play a lot. I mean, heavy hitter, all like that. Once again, the path I was leading Jonathan and Josh down, and it's not anti-Mark Robinson. It's just more along the lines. Is there any scenario you could see where maybe Mark Robinson doesn't make this 53 man
now
roster?
I'm jumping through my screen.
All right. Well, that's, I wanted to test the waters as to the plausibility of him not maybe making this final cut here because of guys like Muse and I think. Look, Muse and Kwiatkowski, obviously, Kwiatkowski more than Muse. They have experience. Both, if they both made this roster, they both would obviously play on special teams and have that going for them. I think it would take a scenario where only maybe 4 inside linebackers were kept in total. But is there just some level of plausibility where Mark Robinson somehow does not make this 53? I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm not so sure I'd bet everything I own on him being on the 53, I guess was the angle that I was trying to take on that.
I see what you're saying. And it's good to think about all these options and not put blinders on and just assume things, because everybody knows what happens when you assume.
What did he, and once again, you talked about him, you broke down, I think, every damn play that he played, on defense last season. But once again, we're only talking about 40-something plays. What has you so bullish on Mark Robinson?
The fact that he's looked this good, despite, as you said, being, a 1 year in college guy playing linebacker, a rookie 7th round pick in the NFL, and you see those flashes. And I just want to see more of it. You made the point, and I agree that you want to see more tape on Mark Robinson. But if they keep signing all these guys to play over Mark Robinson, it's harder to get more tape and quality tape on Mark Robinson.
Right.
So,
and look, that's one of the things that had, I guess, kind of the most confused. And I'm confused all the time, but the most confused, this offseason, or I should say the most intriguing kind of things that have happened were, I didn't expect Terrell Austin to say what he said earlier in the offseason. I think Same. you would agree with that.
Wholeheartedly.
Now, is there a message in there that we just are not seeing? In other words, hey kid, don't let your head get so damn big.
Sure.
That's a plausible angle there. But I was a bit taken back by that. And the second thing, unless, and we'll find out here in a few days, unless Cole Holcomb, they like what they saw. He's on the right path on as far as coming back from the foot surgery and all like that. But maybe we're still going to be cautious with him at the start of training camp, and thus put him on PUP just at the start of camp here to kind of ease him into things. What was the need to sign Nick Kwiatkowski?
Right.
Even though it was for a minimum, and I'd sign Alex Kozora for a veteran benefit deal at this point, especially if he could play special teams, which I have questions about.
I'm fighting hard for Danny Smith. I'm bringing him gum.
I have my questions about that there, but it was a bit when you start adding all these blues clues. And once again, I am a classic overthinker on when it comes to this. I just. Why Terrell Austin's comments and why Kwiatkowski needed to be added, even though it was for the minimum. And
Right.
I'm all about having as many of those guys with experience on your roster on the team.
Yeah, I think it spoke to some level of distrust in Robinson that you can go back to the Austin comments and cite that. And I understand that, again, he's a second-year guy. There's still a lot for him to learn. Even though he's a second-year guy, he's not where most linebackers in his position are because he's still so new to the position. I mean, 3 years ago playing running back at, or was he Presbyterian or Southeast Missouri, whatever colleges he was going through. So I get all that. I just want to see more of this guy. I think that he showed he could hold his own last year. They were building specific packages for him by the end of the season, those run heavy 4-4 fronts. And so I just want them to build upon that. So again,
who was the inside linebacker out of Florida State a couple years ago?
Matthew Thomas.
Yeah. Could this be? Because remember, I'm willing to bet you go back and look at the roster predictions and listen to the podcast and the final. Going over our pre-camp 53-man roster. He was probably on the predictions there, and he ended up not making it.
Yeah, he was like an opposite, though. He was a really good athlete. They had him at gunner a little bit, but he was like the biggest head case, like above the neck. I remember they were doing a special teams drill, and he screwed it up, I think, 3 times in a row and just kept having to try to do it over and over about which way to go and how do you work the drill. And he was just kind of a mess, above the neck. But I think Robinson is kind of the opposite, where athletically he's not going to be a fantastic space player, but like a real good try hard who picks things up quickly. It just, how well can he refine his technique and all that kind of stuff.
And once again, if I had to put out, and obviously with me thinking that they're only going to go 4 outside linebackers, I would go 5 inside linebackers. Mm-hmm. Mine would have Mark Robinson in it.
Would you just have these same 5 if you were building your roster prediction?
Yeah.
Okay.
The thing is, I wonder if based on everything that I said, how safe Mark Robinson actually is.
No, that's fair. I get that overall.
We won't mention any of this again unless he ends up not making it.
Right. Now I'm truly back on the podcast when I hear that. All right, 5 cornerbacks I have being kept. Arthur Millette was on my previous edition, and then 2 days later, he got the HEFO out of Pittsburgh asking for his release. So the 5 that I have are Patrick Peterson, Levi Wallace, Joey Porter Jr., Corey Trice Jr., and Chandon Sullivan. Could be a 6. James Pierre, kind of maybe one of the most notable names left off this list. Certainly could make it, but those are the 5 that I have, Dave.
Yeah, and look, you really hope a guy like Trice with his pedigree and things related to that, and who's going to is it going to be Chandon Sullivan or somebody not on the roster right now? And I know you tried to keep this with only guys that are on the 90-man roster right now. Mm-hmm. So to me the only question is with this group is it 5 or 6, and because if it's 6, Pierre is going to be on there because of special teams, I think, right. And experience. And the second notion of those 6 is it Chandon Sullivan or is it somebody not on the roster right now?
Yeah, or maybe a Duke Dawson. I know that Omar Khan mentioned him, but that slot corner is very much up in the air. With Pierre, I'm going to assume here that Trice kind of overtakes that gunner special teams value that Pierre has. And defensively, Pierre has always been up and down. He's never found that consistency. He's a talented guy. He's shown flashes, but just has never quite put it together. You draft 2 rookies, you add Peterson, which granted is just kind of a swap with Sutton. But I just think maybe Pierre finally gets squeezed out. You can only kind of hang on as that back end corner for so long before somebody replaces you.
Chandon's a pretty decent special teamer, right?
I honestly don't know too much about his special teams background. I know he's played a lot of snaps defensively as a slot corner, and so he's on here because he's like the true slot corner of the 5. I'd have to investigate more about his special teams background.
I think from what I remember, he's at least decent. He can hold his own.
Okay. Yeah. And he could obviously, contribute there and probably would. All right. Safeties. I have 5 as well. Minka Fitzpatrick, DeMonte Casey, Keanu Neal, Miles Killebrew, and Trey Norwood. Norwood's kind of like my 53rd player, and a guy like Elijah Riley could push him hard for a spot. Norwood needs to have a good camp. I think him, Loudermilk are guys that have to have really strong showings to be able to cement their spot on this roster. But for now, I'll give him the nod going into the summer.
Yeah, and Killebrew, you have to think, because of the special teams ability, although that was lacking, well, special teams as a whole didn't make key plays like they had done the year prior to that. So even so, you would still think Miles Killebrew can make this roster as an ace, if you will. And then the question becomes is, Trey Norwood in his final visit with the Bobs. How does that go?
He's got to tackle. He's got to tackle a lot better than he did last season, both defensively and on special teams. So speaking of which, my three specialists, Chris Boswell, I'll go Braden Mann by a nose over Presley Harvin III. I think they're very similar guys. It truly will come down to who punts better, not just in camp, but in the actual preseason games inside stadiums. And then I'll stick with Christian Kuntz as the long snapper over now challenger Rex Sunahara.
For years and all, you just pencil these guys in, the specialist, and not think anything of it. But there's no way you're betting the house on the punter or the long snapper situation as camp gets underway, right?
No, I think they're pretty open battles, and, we'll see. And, will they mix and match holders and snappers, or will, Mann work with just Sunahara and Harvin work with just Kuntz? I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. So there are truly battles across this
right.
entire roster.
Right. I think as I sit here right now, I would lean. I think I'd lean with you on Mann, and I'd also lean with you on Kuntz. But I do think both those spots are up for grabs, and they could end up being grabbed by guys not on the roster right now, for all we know.
Yeah, I think that's less likely, but we've seen that happen. It happened to punter a while back. So yeah, I don't want to completely rule that out. All right, Dave, those are my roster predictions. Will you have an addition before camp starts, or will you wait until after the first game?
I'll try to pound something out, but obviously it'll be very similar to yours. I think I might go one less safety, one more corner with James Pierre in there. I think I would go one less outside linebacker. Where else would I push back here? Yeah, I think that's about. I would need one other spot somewhere. I don't know. Maybe I could find Monty Potabama spot anyway within that. But as is usually the case, there's 7 guys probably on this list that you're not 100% sure about, if not more.
Sure, especially this early out before getting eyes. And again, there's so much roster turnover, so much newness. It's going to be, I think, even a different feel this year, kind of a who are you people kind of experience as camp starts off. So that's going to make it, I think, all the more interesting.
And you had a quite, when's the last time we seen 26-24 on offense?
I'd have to go back and check. Usually they're either 25-25 or 26-24. They don't generally go any heavier on either side than that. Right. But I don't know what last year's was or the year before or anything like that.
Right. And it's only one direction, because it would be 25-25 if it's dead even. So
right.
Yeah, obviously that's happened before. I'm just trying to remember if they were one heavy on offense or defense last year.
Yeah, I don't know. And then you had the whole, they kept 7 receivers initially to move Calvin Austin to IR. So yeah, I'm never going to be at 27-23. That's too heavy for one side. It's always going to be 25-25, 26-24, but that's all inside baseball.
All right. And obviously we hope it doesn't, but injuries, could impact this thing.
Yeah. As we mentioned earlier around the league, and it will probably to some extent, hopefully just to a smaller extent, but who the heck knows? All right, Dave, we're wrapping things up here. Probably too many, as you said, 90 and 30 names to get to. Is there any guys that you had written about that you just wanted to note, but you had a special note where you're like, I really want to talk about this guy before camp kicks off?
Let me pull up the master list real quick there. I'm sure I could pick out one or two. I mean, we've obviously had the conversations about guys like Paralis and all. And let me pull it up here. Elijah Riley's an interesting conversation, I think, because of the fact that they talked about him potentially being in maybe some competition for that slot position. You're talking about a guy that's versatile overall, played corner and safety in his college career. good special teamer, guy that was on the practice squad, a guy that they obviously liked for several reasons there. So I think he's an interesting name going on into the summer as far as depth goes. We talked about guys like Graham and Hagen's going to be interesting to watch them battle for spots there. We mentioned Spencer Anderson and that versatility when it comes to him. Let me see if there's anybody else on here. We mentioned, Pottebaum is just going to be an interesting name for several reasons to watch overall. Who would be kind of your prime? We mentioned McCollum in the center position. Yeah, I think we got most of it covered here. Who would be guys that you think slam dunk practice squad guys?
Yeah, slam dunk practice squad feels like an oxymoron because if you're not good enough to make the 53, there's something going on that is diminishing your chances.
Oh, obviously, Hakeem Butler not on your 53, and I think people will take notice of that. It just feels like the uphill battle over a guy like Boykins. Just he really would have to stick out on special teams with Hakeem Butler.
Yeah, Butler's one of those guys that could make it as a number 6, but will have to play his way onto the roster and just not getting eyes on him. And, obviously there's some intriguing talent that was him coming out of Iowa State this past year with the XFL, but has yet to catch an NFL pass. And so I need to get eyes on him and really say, okay, this guy's playing well enough, Dave, the first 2 weeks of camp after the first game that he is working his way onto the roster. And until we see that, I'm not going to put Butler on my 53.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
I would just say Pottebaum. I think the Nyamwaya, the rookie defensive lineman, has a good shot to make it.
Paralysis if he doesn't make the 53.
Paralysis, probably a couple offensive linemen. If McCollum doesn't make the 53, then I think he's going to go practice squad because there's versatility. Probably did it with Anderson. Just kind of filling out the roster that way.
All right. Once again, true or false? Someone not under contract right now will be on the 53-man roster, at least one.
You got to say true because it's been true for how many straight years now? So I don't know who, I don't know how, but probably somebody.
Will it be more than one?
Now it's kind of, we're all just really guessing all the more.
I think the averages say that it is, though, right?
Yeah. I think this year's a little bit different just because there's already been so much roster turnover to begin with. So I guess I'll call my shot, quote unquote, and say just one, but who the heck knows?
I think there'll be at least two.
Okay, fair enough. Any idea of the positions? Or are you going no?
No, okay. I think corner and I think center are two that you really got to look. Slot corner and center are two that stick out of my head.
How about return guy? I know that Jordan Bird is there. I know it matters less, but if Austin cannot wear those hats, if they can find someone who can do kicks and punts, obviously you're not going to get a guy that just does just kicks because there's not enough value there. But remember Ray McLeod a couple years ago, that's how he got his way on the roster. So just to mention that as well.
It's plausible.
All right, Dave, this is our last podcast before camp actually begins. We're going to do one on Wednesday later in the day after players report and speak and Mike Tomlin speaks, and maybe we'll see who's on PUP, if anybody. So any final pre-camp thoughts? Because next time we talk, we're going to be in the soup, as they say. We're going to be getting after it.
Yeah, I think just some of the things that at the start of camp, we see a Mike Tomlin extension announced right out of the chute. That's obviously been a topic of conversation this off season here. We're going to get this looks like Alex Highsmith will speak to the media today, so they'll be able to get that out of the way there. I used to write up posts every year of who I thought, they're surely going to have a clean PUP NFI list and all like that. But how many times have we written those type subjects up to have the surprises last minute? Last year it was Mika Fitzpatrick on the non-football injury list with a wrist injury, and Tyson Alualu I think was on PUP because of some knee swelling there. It's impossible to predict these things because you don't know what's happened behind closed doors. But I think the key thing to watch would be two guys like Cole Holcomb and Allen Robinson. How ready is ready right now? Even though both those guys seemed to ramp it up as the offseason program went on, will they be cautious with both those guys, or will they get the green lights right out of the chute there? And then where are there any surprises when it comes to maybe PUP or NFI list? I will say this. It looks like I'm going to make it through my 90 and 30 with it being 90 and 30 and not 91 or 92 in 30, because the roster has been the roster for obviously well over a month now. And it doesn't look like any changes are coming. As soon as we get off this podcast, we'll obviously make a move at that point there. But and then obviously the first Kenny Pickett scrum session will be interesting. And then, as we talked at the top of the show, what's Najee Harris and his thoughts on this whole running back market thing. So just those are some of the things as camp opens that I think will be storylines worth following.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said there. I would just add to it just a general statement. The second-year players, Kenny Pickett, George Pickens, Jalen Warren, even DeMarvin Leal, how are they looking to make that jump? Guys, across the board showed a lot of promise, but, can they really ascend into bigger roles and become, a much better player and kind of round out the edges of their game? That's going to be interesting to watch. Just the secondary, the communication, how many mental mistakes are there early on in camp with new pieces, at inside linebacker, at slot corner, at strong safety. That'll be something to watch for. So that, and I think it's going to be a pretty hot one at camp this week too. And so early on, conditioning, again, the most important trait is being available, being ready. Jalen Warren, for all the great plays that he made last summer, backs on backers and running the ball, all that kind of stuff. He was available. He did not miss a practice. When the Lions got short at running back, when Najee Harris went down, when Benny Snell was down early in camp last year, they didn't add running backs for a while. And Warren was getting a ton of carries, and he was trucking along every day, finishing practice. Next day, he was ready. So that is the hidden factor of camp, is be conditioned, be in shape. Don't want to pull a hammy. You pull a hammy, you're out longer than you think. You're out probably 3 weeks, 2.5, 3 weeks with a hamstring injury. You're tracing the middle field at training camp as everyone practices next to you. So you cannot pull a hammy if you're a young guy trying to make a team. So you got to be hydrated, sleep, eat right, get work done from the training staff, and be available, be ready to go all practices all the time.
Yeah, if these young players hadn't heeded Mike Tomlin's annual advice at this point, it's too late now.
Yeah, you can't get ready on July 24th for sure.
They can't do what you did. Just go out, buy a treadmill, and get on it for a couple of days, and be. Yeah, look, it is going to be interesting to watch the heat and
humidity. It gets hot out there and sticky.
And these guys think they're ready until they find out that they're not ready. And once again, if you're at the end of the line, into the position lines, you can't afford to miss any practices.
No, not at all.
At all.
Let me go full dad mode here. Look at the 10-day outlook. So Wednesday, it's going to be tough. Wednesday, which is granted just a conditioning test, but 89, Thursday 90, Friday 92 with some storms, Saturday 83 storms, Sunday 82 storms. So I'm going to get wet. I got my trusty waterproof paper ready to go, but it's going to be muggy. It's going to be hot. It's going to be a true camp experience.
All right. You want to get to a couple of emails? We've neglected those here the last couple of shows.
Let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right. From Jim Bendis, he says, outrageous, not likely to happen pre-training camp predictions. He says, as we start training camp in a few days, I was wondering if you guys had some outrageous end of the season predictions that you would like to make. Outrageous in terms of not likely to happen, but if the stars line perfectly, it could happen. For example, on offense, Matt Canada could be offensive coordinator of the year if there is such an award. On defense, Mark Robinson is a starting interior linebacker by the end of the season and goes to the Pro Bowl. What are your outrageous, not likely to happen but could happen predictions? Also, good job to all to keep the site going through the dead period of the NFL season. Thanks for that, Jim. Nobody likes to see training camp get here more than us, because July is just brutal as far as trying to find good content to write about, keep people entertained. Outrageous pre-camp predictions like that. I mean, I want to learn more about these players for, I think that's more of a question to be had as we go into the season. After we set our eyes on some things, right? Yeah. Matt Canada being up for a fictitious offensive coordinator of the year award. I think that's just way, way too far outrageous. Mark Robinson. I could see Mark Robinson, even after all the talk that we had, I could see him possibly being a starting inside linebacker, but by the end of the season, potentially. Now going to the Pro Bowl, that's way out there as well too. What would be outrageous, after not yet seeing these guys?
Yeah, I'm going to punt on the question, to be honest. I think, like you said, obviously anything outrageous is hard to predict. But let's get to camp. Let's watch these guys for a day before the season. I may have some more type of those predictions, but anything right now is just totally, just throwing stuff at the wall.
Jay Guilford has a legacy question. Thank God training camp is almost upon us as we start to discuss actual football. But in the meantime, I have a legacy question for you. My dad, brother, and I had this debate before, so I was hoping you two could weigh in. Which was the better linebacking core of their day? Greg Lloyd, Chad Brown, Levon Kirkland, Kevin Green, or James Harrison, James Ferrier, Lawrence Timmons, and Lamar Woodley? He says, no wrong answers here, just interesting food for thought as we make our way out of the doldrums of the offseason. All right, which four was the better legacy group? Now, if you talk legacy, my mind immediately goes to more of a longevity type situation there. Look, without a doubt, Lloyd and Green and Brown and Kirkland, that was a monster four. And anytime you see that picture that floats around of those four, not in pads but in uniform, it makes you harken back to, man, what a great group that was there. But within that, man, how solid in the day was Harrison, Ferrier, Timmons, and Woodley? And for the length of time that they were all able to play together as well too. Mm-hmm. Because didn't you have Harrison and Timmons both in the plus double digit, or I'm sorry, Harrison and Woodley both in the double digit sack column, and Ferrier and That's a hard choice. I'm going to go with because you asked legacy and the longevity, I tend to lean slightly to Harrison, Ferrier, Timmons, and Woodley, to be honest with you.
My first thought was to go with the 90s bunch, but to hear the word legacy, I kind of pivoted because I thought, who won the ring? Who has the Super Bowl? And that's not obviously the defense's fault of the 90s. That's the whole Neil O'Donnell kind of thing, but it's all about rings in Pittsburgh. That's legacy. That's how you get remembered. And that group, Harrison and company in 2008 won a Super Bowl. So I'm going to go with that because Super Bowls create legacies.
Yeah, it's not hard to I'll take the losing group here, for sure.
It's a great consolation prize, whatever you want to pick there.
Richard Jameson writes in, about 2 weeks ago, Alex Kozora wrote an article asserting.
It's never good when someone starts with Alex Kozora. When I get the mom full name treatment, I'm a little nervous.
Asserting that signing running back Malcolm Brown would be a sensible move. He says, to be clear, which would be more sensible, signing Malcolm Brown or re-signing Benny Snell, and why? I know which way I'm going on this, but go ahead.
All right, well, that was better than I thought. I was going to get a real hate email there coming back. No, I think Benny Snell would be the more sensible signing, but I guess I was picking a name that was a little off the beaten path. And if Snell was going to come back, you'd think he'd come back by now. It kind of feels like, Pittsburgh was just moving on, or Snell was moving on. Snell was in the Broncos camp, I think, during OTAs and did not sign there. So ideally, yeah, bring Snell back. But if not him, then Malcolm Brown's kind of a Snell substitution.
Yeah, I immediately go from a sensible standpoint because you know what you get with Benny Snell, and some of that, what you know that you get is that special teams asset there.
Mm-hmm. And he's younger.
Yeah. So, if you made me choose of which one I would like to have back of the two, it'd be Benny Snell. I'm kind of wondering if I not look like we're going to see either one of them though. Let's see. LM writes in, I love when you two went through the 2024 free agents and identified Wallace and maybe Golden as the only two to sign over minimum. He says 2024 season really primed to emerge. Could you break down the guys technically under contract in 2024, but on contract structures that could mean won't be back, like Miles Jack and Akella Witherspoon this offseason? Okay, look, I don't want to go too terribly deep into this, but just off the cuff of guys that are under contract for 2024 that you could potentially not see, in other words, get cut basically, or at some point during the offseason. I think a name that sticks out easy for me is Allen Robinson. He's that salary of his jumps up to, I think, around 10 million next offseason there. So I think if you're building a list of guys this far out that potentially might not, who are under contract for 2024, but might not make the 53-man roster, I think Allen Robinson's on that list. Landon Roberts is another name that kind of sticks out, really playing for his future in 2023. So I think that's another one on this list here.
Got a core for? Would you consider that?
Yeah, I think that's this is a big season for him. He's got to play well. He's got to earn every bit of that money. He's got a $4 million roster bonus due next March. So that becomes a target watch date right now for Chukwuma Okorafor. So I think they're, depending on how he plays in 2023, it will become obvious to us, I think, one way or the other, especially because he has a $4 million roster bonus involved there. So those are three right off the top of the bat there. Anybody else?
Patrick Peterson, how good does he play? Does he fall off? I mean, a 2-year deal, but 2-year deals can be 1-year deals pretty quickly.
Right. How many times have we seen these guys signed to these 2 or 3 year deals that don't make it? Now, he would be on the bottom of the list, but I think he does deserve to be on the list of guys to potentially watch. Right.
Well, yeah, I think in Pittsburgh's man-heavy scheme, it's probably not best for a 33-year-old corner who's admittedly, losing some of that speed and the versatility. Will that work? Will it won't? Maybe. He certainly can be an asset in some ways, but I think it's either going to go really well with Patrick Peterson or really poorly. I don't know which way it's going to go. I think it's kind of boom bust with how it works out.
And look, Cole Holcomb, what if he can't move past his foot injury? That would be my main concern with him. I think if he's healthy, he's going to give them at least what they are looking for, if not a little bit more. But what if he's not healthy? What if that foot causes an issue?
Yeah, and maybe, I don't know if I heard this wrong because it was like at midnight. Charlie Batch, did you listen to that training camp preview that got aired with Batch and Pompiani? I'll have to go back and check. I swear that Batch had something about a hamstring with Holcomb. I don't know if he misspoke or if I misheard or something like that, but I just want to keep an eye on that. Obviously, that wouldn't be necessarily a super long-term thing, but yeah, coming off the foot injury, there is a concern there. And Pittsburgh, do the old Pittsburgh linebacker 2-step, 1 step in, 1 step out. I mean, these guys have been rotating so much, and I think Roberts could be a cut candidate. Holcomb probably has extra security because it's a 3-year contract that he signed. I'd like him to at least see 2 years of that, but yeah, you never know.
All right, so I think those are a good 4 or 5 names to throw out there as potential not on the roster guys who are under contract for 2024.
Yeah, that was a good question. Hopefully we answered that sufficiently.
Let's see here if I find any more. Larissa writes in, hello, great shows as always. Do you think it was a mistake to let Cam Sutton go this year? I was almost positive the Steelers would do everything to keep him. Number 2, do you think it's better to let Kenny go all out and make big throws even if that result is interceptions, or is it better to keep it tight and safe? Larissa says, I think the Steelers keep it safe and we won't see his full potential. I'd rather he throws a bunch of interceptions but takes risk while exploring NFL and learns. And number 3, is anyone concerned about concussions with Muth and Pickett? They have had several already. If we keep throwing to Muth down the middle of the field, it seems he is more risk to get contact there and possible head injuries. Wouldn't want him to retire early, and same with Pickett. Look, predicting concussions, and it could just be bad luck with these guys, or maybe they are kind of prone. I don't know enough about that. The question is anyone concerned about concussions with Muth and Pickett? That should be the question. And the answer should be, yeah, you should be concerned about them because they're head injuries.
Mm-hmm. And we've talked about that several times. Now Pickett has a new helmet. And so that will hopefully reduce some of those ground. I don't know what you want to call it, because it's been the ground that's been causing the concussions whenever his head bounces off of it. So yeah, it's always scary when we're talking about repeated head injuries.
All right, working backwards in these questions, do you think it's better for Kenny to go all out, make big throws, even if the results in interceptions? The short answer to that is no. I don't want Kenny playing. I'm sure George Pickens is down there somewhere. However, there are situations where you've got to trust that your guy can make the play. I was going through some of the stats on Kenny Pickett and looking at some of the later season tape versus the earlier season tape over the weekend here with him. And obviously, look, one of the big things I'm looking for Kenny Pickett is a stat nobody cares about, so adjusted net yards for passing attempt. But, during that second half of the season, it got better. And obviously, because the interceptions were down, just one. Here's something that I actually had to go look at, too, because shame on me, I could not remember it for whatever reason. Do you remember the second half lone interception that Kenny Pickett threw and how that happened, who it was against and how it happened?
I do. It was against the Raiders. He got pressured and kind of had a little floater to the linebacker underneath, right?
Right. And it was a pressure situation.
Yeah,
and I don't think if we ever saw a good angle of just how in his face the defense was it Crosby or was it?
No, I think it was the other left or the right D end. I think that came through. I think.
Mac, wasn't it? Was it Mac?
Maybe I can try to go back and check.
I remember going back and look because once I saw the play, I was like, oh yeah. In other words, it was I think the defender got in his face a little bit quicker as he was releasing the ball. The ball came out. In other words, it was a forgivable interception, if you will, to some degree. Just not, picking up on how quick the pressure was going to a forgivable, unforgivable interception, if you will, there. But anyway, long story short, and you don't need a cherry pick here, but I mean, from the bye on, he was a lot closer to that 6.0 adjusted net yards per passing attempt number than obviously his stat was for the year. The other thing is he was sacked 6 times in that game against the Saints right after the bye, right?
Was he really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't realize it was that many.
Yeah,
I'd forgotten that.
And sacks obviously play a part in adjusted net yards per passing attempt number. So if you were to look at his numbers past that Saints game, he was definitely trending in the right direction as far as that stat goes. All right. Now, obviously, the tape means more than anything else, and I think you pointed out that there was some progression in there, which there was, and all. What I'm getting at here is coming out at the beginning of the season. I expect Pickett to be leaning a little bit more on the conservative side, if you will. I don't want him. I'm sure Pickens is down there somewhere. I don't want to see those type of interceptions, early on. I want it to be very explainable. I want it to be forgivable, unforgivable interceptions, if any happen.
I agree. I think it'll be more conservative. That was the model that got them to 7-2 down the stretch last year. But to answer the question, it's not, it's not the extremes. It's not, do you go for broke all the time and just start, slinging it, or do you go uber conservative? It's a line. It's a balance you're always walking based on game circumstance, the coverage, A million different factors. So it's not do this or do that. It's not black and white. It's varying shades of gray. I think it probably will slant a bit more towards let's play ball control, take care of the football. That's been a winning model for us. Sure. But there's going to be times where he's going to take shots and try to make some plays. So it's not all or nothing when it comes to the quarterback's mindset.
Now, look, he is going to have to push the football down the field a little more early in the season and stuff like that. But, just doing it just to do it. No,
Yeah, it's not. You don't tell Kenny, hey, go crazy, or hey, Kenny, don't try anything. It's not the mindset you give to your quarterback. It's based on the play and the coverage and the game situation, a million different factors. So it's not this or that.
Yeah, remember, he was sacked 6 times against the Eagles. And then obviously the bye week came. He was sacked 6 times for 37 yards. I had to look at that 3 times too.
Yeah, I forgot he was sacked that much. And they still won that game relatively comfortably.
Right. So obviously, sacks impact to a minor degree. Obviously, interceptions matter more. And then if you could up your touchdown rate and all like that. But just from that stat perspective in the second half of the season, it got climbing in the right direction as you hope it would. Obviously didn't throw a ton of touchdowns in the second half of that season. What was it? 5 touchdown passes versus 1 interception there. You would love to have that kind of ratio right out of the chute, right? For first 6 games kind of situation. Obviously, you want the totals higher of the touchdowns and the interceptions to be on the same pace as ratio as that 5-1. And then, you want to limit the sacks as well, too. But the first part of that question was, do you think it was a mistake to let Cam Sutton go this year? And look, Larissa, we're both. I was pretty animate. I thought they were going to re-sign him. I think from where I sit right now, and we'll see how things play out. I think it might have been a mistake to let him walk for what he walked for.
I think unequivocally it was. I think that was the biggest mistake that Omar Khan made this offseason. And I think overall it was a good offseason. I liked and supported most of the moves that he made, but I think choosing to let Sutton go and signing Patrick Peterson in his place for just a couple $1 million less in savings was the wrong move. I think they're going to really miss Cam Sutton, the versatility, the flexibility, the comfort that he brought. And he was a really good outside corner last year when he was playing there before bumping inside in some of those sub-package situations. So yeah, I think short answer, it was a big mistake.
What was Sutton's
3 years, $33 million. I don't know the actual cap charge for year 1, but that was the total of the deal.
Cap number this year, because they used the voided years on him as well too, which
bring it down.
Which they there's no rule that says you can't. Obviously we know the Steelers' stance on it post COVID and all like that, but his cap number was 3.28. All right, so let's back that out and not use the void years there. There would have been another 4.3 million to divide up over 3 years. I mean, let's say his cap number needed to be 4.5 million. They could have made that work.
I'm sure there's a will, there's a way. You can massage the cap, sure.
And they could have still had Peterson too.
Well, I don't know if they would have. I don't know if Peterson would have come here if you bring Sutton back. I think it was kind of either or.
Well,
but I'll take Sutton over Peterson.
I mean, I'm just saying they could have got both done. So, but I think we both went into the offseason thinking, man, they're going to re-sign Cam Sutton, and then they didn't. So yeah. From where I sit right now, I still have a bad taste in my mouth. When it comes to that. All right, I think we got through everything here that we need to get to. We will be back on Wednesday, probably right after the players report and after Tomlin speaks. So it'll probably be a later afternoon podcast, correct?
Yeah, it should be later in the day. Will not be out in the morning or early afternoon. And we'll have a live stream tonight, our last live stream of the offseason before camp begins on YouTube at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So hang out with Dave and myself and ask us Steelers questions, and do that one more time before football gets going.
All right, that should be an interesting session later on tonight. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Hey, Alex, welcome back.
Thank you so much. It's good to be back.
Let's see. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you like the site, want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you want an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button up right navigational bar. Follow the directions that way there. Exciting week here for sure, and we will be back on Wednesday with another episode. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.